she never wavered. She never pulled back on her access. She did say to me early on, she actually said to me before we even started filming, don't ask me permission. Don't ask me, because if you do, it will break the spell.
Hello, and welcome back to The Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America. In this episode, singer Celine Dion makes plain her raw and honest struggle with stiff person syndrome in director Irene Taylor's documentary, I Am Celine Dion. Screened as part of the DGA's documentary series, the film tells the story of the Canadian singer's past and present, as well as the sacrifices she's made to continue performing for her beloved fans, all while managing her life-altering illness. In addition to I Am Celine Dion, Taylor's other directorial credits include the documentary features Trees and Other Entanglements, Leave No Trace, Moonlight Sonata, Deafness in 3 Movements, and the documentary shorts Between Sound and Silence, Open Your Eyes, and The Final Inch. Following the documentary series screening of the film at the DGA Theater in Los Angeles, Taylor spoke with director Ondi Timoner about filming I Am Celine Dion. Listen on for their conversation.
All right. So Carmen, right?
Yeah.
So why Carmen to begin and the film?
Well, I learned that Celine very early on was a opera fan, and Maria Callas has performed numerous pieces that are Celine's favorites, and she kind of has an obsession with her, which could have been a whole other little short story in this film. So yeah, and I should say that, I saw this archival footage of her early on before we were done filming. And I saw her performing something that Maria Callas had made so famous. And so I talked to her about that particular piece. And that's when I learned how much she listens to her on a regular basis, and that she owns some of her jewelry and owns a painting of hers that was in the living room, which was a little outtake I wish I could have included. But yeah, so I knew that I wanted to put that somewhere in the film. And so I ended up putting her performing it as a young girl in the end. And then, of course, I started the film with it as well.
Yeah. What's interesting is I didn't realize when in the beginning of the film that she was the one singing it necessarily until the end of the film, which is a nice reveal.
Well, no, that was Maria Callas at the beginning.
Oh, yes. Okay.
And so that's Celine at the end at a much younger age, not quite doing it like Maria Callas did as she had matured. So,
and now today in August 2024, in the middle of the Paris Olympics, it makes me think of Edith Piaf, and it makes me think of Celine's total victory the other night. Yeah. Right? I mean, it just was so incredible to see her perform like that. And I just wonder.
That was not scripted, by the way. I didn't even know until like a few days before it was happening that it was happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that just was like a little coda at the end of the film a month after it premiered that happened. So.
I mean, it's got to be incredible.
I mean, I think it's just
part of this.
We are nonfiction. We believe in the power of serendipity in real life. And just when that happened, I just thought, wow, good on her, good for her, good for the world that they could, I did not see it when it happened. I did not see it live. I just kept getting text messages, and so I did make a point to see it later that evening.
And are you guys on a texting base? Like, were you like, go Celine afterwards? Like, because it must be so.
I did not try to reach out in that moment. It just, I figured, I still wanted to see it, and just, I needed to, just take it in myself also, because there's just been so many serendipitous aspects to making this film that I just, I do sometimes marvel at just how the two of us came together and how it all.
Tell us about that. That's where I want to start, obviously. How did you end up making this film? I mean, I know your films and I know of Celine Dion, but I was never a massive fan, but it is an interesting combination. And I understand that you felt the same. Like it was kind of an interesting proposition.
For those of us in the room who may have ever just gotten a call, I think we all have just a call that changes everything. And I don't want to say it changed my life, but in some ways it did change my life because I decided to acquiesce and say, yeah, I'll give that a go. But I got a call from a producer here in LA, Lisa Copland, for those of you who may know her. And she just said, hey, I know we haven't talked for a year, but what do you think of Celine Dion? And I paused and I said, well, I don't really think of her much, but I mean, she's a powerhouse. What about her? And she said, I understand that she is open to a documentary being made about her. And, she's just sitting at home, not because she was sick. I didn't know that. Neither did Liesl, actually. But it was the pandemic and so many musicians had just stopped touring. I mean, I think most musicians had stopped touring. And so I know they're looking for someone who might be the right fit. And I thought of you, can I just throw your name in? And a year later is when we finally decided to do it. But after many, many meetings and, that sort of thing. So that's kind of how it started.
Which is 2021?
I believe so. I'm terrible with years, but yeah, it was probably late 2020 or early 2021.
So did you fly to go see her? And what was that meeting like?
The first time I met her is, if you recall, maybe in the first 5 minutes of the film, when she walks into her house, she's walking outside and she looks behind at the camera. That was about 20 minutes after I met her in person. But I had been speaking with her. I'd maybe spent 3 hours on the phone or 4 hours on the phone with her at that point, but not that much.
And what did you think the film was going to be about?
Well, I was petrified what the film would be about because I thought, what the hell am I doing making a film about someone who's fabulous and who has a fabulous life? Because I did not know she was sick. And, I was not told she was sick until after I had agreed to do the film and the contracts were signed and it had been announced. And so there was a 2 to 3 week period, which was that period where I was completely panicked because this is not my typical fodder. I've never made a film about a celebrity, although I feel like all of my film subjects are celebrities to me. But not a publicly acknowledged celebrity. And so I definitely actually panicked. And that's just the honest, vulnerable truth. I thought, I don't know how to operate a crane. We talked about this at dinner. I'm like, how am I going to shoot a concert? Like, I don't know how to shoot a concert, but it was probably just a few days after it was announced in the trades that I would be directing this film that, her manager at Sony and her manager, in her home life, in her office, said, hey, let's get on a call. And they told me. She did not tell me. They told me. And they simply said, look, this is a big thing to tell you, but we don't really have much to say other than something's wrong with Celine's health. It's been wrong for a while, but they didn't tell me 17 years. So what's a while? If it's you, 2 months is a while, a long time, right? So I just didn't know what that meant. And so they said, it doesn't have a name. We think it might be this, we think it might be that, but the doctors don't have a consensus. So I was really filming through this period where she was figuring out what it was. So I think it was even scarier than when she got the diagnosis. I think the diagnosis was a bit of a relief. So when she tells me that is the diagnosis, that was, that was actually a moment of some relief to her because at least there was something to grasp onto at that time.
What a horrible, it feels as an artist, to see an artist who has that command of her craft, like the greatest singer, one of the greatest singers in the world, to be unable to use her instrument. It feels like she's being buried alive in a way. It must be so painful.
Yeah. I mean, even like if, you talked about not being particularly a fan, and I certainly respected her, but I also was not like deeply tracing her vocal career and the iterations of her musicianship over the decades. Right. I mean, and they are decades, but I certainly could appreciate she's a 1 in a million performer. And so the more I came to understand about this disease, I just thought, good God, this is like the power of documentary. It's like, what are the chances that a 1 in a million performer would get a 1 in a million disease? That the mathematicians in this room might be able to tell me what is that probability? It's very low. All right. So I just, I really realized that there was something horrific and precious at the same time, like happening in terms of being able to be with her at this time in her life where she wasn't distracted by a tour, but something that was just completely consuming her on a day-to-day basis. And, for us, a typical day would be 3 hours of physical therapy and filming the whole thing and learning that she doesn't want to wear a lavalier. We should just use the boom mic. And that's when I decided to be the sound girl.
Oh, really?
I was a sound girl. Yeah. Sound woman.
And is
sound
that because
person.
it was just easier to get closer to her that way? And
because I didn't want a third person in the room. I already had a DP, who was my very trusted DP. And for many years, I shot my own films. And that's kind of how I first came into filmmaking, was through photography. But I finally decided in 2020 to to switch to an Arri Mini LF and 6 signature prime lenses, which presented a whole new challenge for me, which was that I didn't really know the camera well enough, but I knew what it could produce. And I knew that was the effect I wanted. That was the way I wanted to work. It was a big camera. It was not a documentarian's camera necessarily, but if you could wear a vest and you could hold the camera. So I decided to stop shooting my films at that point and work exclusively with Nick Midwig, who is my director of photography now on 6 films. And we shot that whole film with signature prime lenses. So we never had the ability to zoom. We never put a zoom lens on. And, I think, and we never used a light. We never used any light. So what we lost in, I'm going to be discreet with a little camera, what we lost there, we gained that we never wasted time setting anything up. We could just roll. And as long as, and we never put it on a tripod.
And what was he using? An Arri?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the Mini LF.
Huh. Wow. There's so much to unpack in everything you just said. So let's start
about
with
process for sure.
Congrats, because it's a really intimate, really, you can feel the trust. You can feel like you're there. And that's not the normal, celebrity doc experience, in my view. Like, it's really hard to strike that kind of natural feeling and just invite the audience in that way. I love how it starts, right there with her son asking a question. Was that a spontaneous?
Mm-hmm.
Did that happen like right off the bat, day one?
Yeah.
Tell me about, like, how do you begin to break down a process of filming with Celine Dion, who's also experiencing this horrific situation in her life, and all of her tours have been canceled and everything is just falling apart around her.
Mm-hmm.
How do you say, okay, 10 a.m., I'll be back here for?
Yeah. Well, first of all,
physio?
she's a major night owl. So we never started anything before 1 o'clock. And she typically would get up at 12. And sometimes we would just sit outside on her sofas in the shade until 2 or 3, because they'd be like, she got up at 1, but she stays up really late, and her boys are homeschooled. So they just have this like family cadence that is, I don't know, Spanish. Is that what you call it? Where just it's everything, you eat very late and you get up very late. Well, maybe you don't get up late. There's no siestas in their house, but in any case, she was very comfortable with us being in the house, which was very surprising to me from the get-go. I had the sense when I agreed to do the film, partly why I agreed is because I had the sense that she had decided, I've made the decision, you can come into my home and that's where we're going to make this film. Like, meaning that's where you're going to be. She had no directive what the film would be about, but she just said, we're going to be here because this is where I live and I don't leave. I can't get out. I can't leave my house. So her kids were not off limits. And she just basically said to me, you work it out with them. I'm not going to facilitate it. She didn't mean it, quite like that, but it was just, if they want to be with you, be with them.
You have boys. You know how to navigate
yes,
boys.
I do have 3 boys. One of them who is here, Gil, tonight. And, we did easily fall into a nice rapport with her boys because my DP is a natural teacher. He also looks like he's 15. And so, they just got along splendidly, and he would often teach them about the camera, and I happily handed them the director's monitor. So that's really what that day was about. And it was just very ordinary. I think we thought Celine would come in probably at 2:00 and out of her bedroom, and she came out into the living room more like around 2:30. And so we just were kind of hanging out with the boys, and Nick offered to teach them how to use the camera. And so when she came out, it was just splendid timing. These things cannot be planned, but you can certainly go with them when they happen, and in this case, she came out. I actually just heard it tonight. What do I do, Mr. Director? I think like I'd forgotten about that line, which is so great. Like she was treating her boys like they were directing the film, and then, she just blew me away when she said that about, I've traveled the world, but would you believe I've never seen anything? And I think she was, that pretty much summed up where she was, is because she'd never been forced into this position where she was, and she realized how ill-equipped she was to deal with it. But I think over the course of the year, if I could trace her narrative arc, it wasn't just, yes, she got a diagnosis, which gave her some reassurance. And yes, she saw the outpouring of support from the world, but she also learned how to find inside of herself that she actually had a lot that she could rely on. And I think a big part of it was her family, and she specifically, wanted to tell this film in her own voice, I think, but was happy for me to bring in the archives to just show a little bit what that foundation may have been for her.
Yeah, tell me about that. There aren't any other interviews really about her in the film. How did that come to happen?
You mean just the interviews?
Just really, it's her. It's
her
yes.
Other interviews.
Film.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mentioned that we got to know each other over Zoom, not in person. And she said to me, after we had talked at least for a couple of hours, she said it more like an empirical question in the third person. Would one be able to make a documentary where the subject is the only voice in the film? And I said, you mean just the person who, I was just clarifying. And she said, yeah, just, no one else talking about the person, but just the person talking about the person. And I said, well, of course that can be done. Yeah, sure. Yeah. And I'm thinking, where is she going with this? And she said, well, if it's okay with you, if we work together, I would really like that. And I said, well, that is music to my ears. I mean, I really did say that phrase. I said, that is music to my ears. I would love to do that. But it's going to be harder for you. And if you're not yourself, I will know it. And the camera will reveal that. And so if you're on board, we can absolutely do that. So that was the only, I would say, collaborative conversation we ever had until after she saw the film. And after she saw the film, the one additional thing she said to me, she said she didn't want me to change one thing. She encouraged me to keep, she said very dramatically, actually. First thing she said after she saw the film, and I was telling you, cried. gently through the whole thing. She said, I think this film can help me, Irene. And don't cut that scene. And we both knew what that scene was. And when that scene happened, she never said anything to me about it. She never asked to see it 2 months later, 4 months later. Did you edit that? Did you put that in the film? She was just willing to be surprised. And she really only wanted to chime in on an idea I had very late in the process. It wasn't until we worked with Laura Hirschberg at Skywalker Ranch, who's just an incredibly thoughtful sound mixer, designer, sound auteur. We decided together we wanted to make a sound montage when the world was learning that she had this disease. So we decided to put all these news clips, and I really did not want to, pollute the film with like pictures of a news correspondent in Paris and a news correspondent in Montreal and someone in the US. And I didn't want to do that, but I wanted this kind of oral sensation of just like messages being through our thumbs being pushed across the world. And so that's what you see in the first, 7 or 8 minutes of the film. And I told her I wanted to do that. And she said, oh, could I help you with that? And I thought that was so great because all she really wanted to do was get on the phone with me this was 6 months after we were done filming. And she just described what it felt like to have SBS and it in her brain, in her body. And she called it an electrical storm, and she called it painful, and she called it like whiplash. And so I just furiously took notes. And then we had the assets. We had the 7 or 8 clips from the news we wanted. I had more or less 8 or 10 songs that I wanted, little flourishes from the melodies you all know, and then maybe melodies people don't know that have a more screeching element or a bassy element, or whatever it might be. And so with her notes, Laura and I mixed that whole montage, and it took us like 2 days just to do this 30-second audio montage. But, and I did tell Celine, hey, you really did collaborate with me on this, but that was really the beginning. Could it be my own voice? And that was such a relief. I didn't have to travel all over the world. And it's just much more interesting, of course, coming from her. So,
yeah. And so what was yeah, I think it's incredible. And you gave me the detail that I'll share with the audience. It was just you two, one other person sitting on her couch at home watching the movie. And it must for you have been your experience. It's always nerve-wracking showing a subject of film, but someone like Celine Dion and somebody who's going through something who's this raw in the movie.
Well, it is actually kind of rare. I don't, my mentor is Sheila Nevins, who ran HBO documentary films, and I made 10 films for Sheila over the years. And she would never sit in the room with the subject of a film ever. And she would never sit in the room with a director of the film. So I had actually only sat with a subject of mine, 2 times when I made a film about my family. And I made 2 films about my family. And then I made one other film, a tragic film about these 2 young girls whose lives were consumed with this internet boogeyman called Slender Man. And I said to Sheila, we have got to show the parents this film. I cannot look at them in the eye after the film comes out and just say, okay. There are certain films where, because I really haven't done that in my other films. It's not a typical thing. But the 2 films I made about my family, there was no question that I would show it to them, not because they insisted upon it, but because it just didn't feel right not to.
You have to, yeah.
So, and I know you know that.
Yes.
You know that very well. So it was, this was the 4th time in my career that had happened. And I was, I was very nervous, but I was the most nervous. I was nervous about 2 things. I was the most nervous about her medical crisis because I knew she'd never seen herself like that before. She couldn't remember. She knew that it had happened anecdotally because people told her it happened backstage at a concert, happened and her husband saw it, happened and her sister saw it, but no one had ever photographed it. Other than her manager, who photographed that vertical video that you see right after the title comes in. And that was my way of just like, boop, palate cleanser. That's not what this film is about. You're actually I'm just going to bring you right in here. He had filmed that, but she did not even know that her own manager had filmed A Crisis 6 months earlier in a hotel room in Denver. She had no idea. So I was the most nervous about that. And then I was also nervous, to be honest, about depicting her husband, because her husband has not been with her long enough that I thought, maybe she doesn't want to go back. Maybe she doesn't want to talk about that too much. And I navigated that. Well, so I just wasn't sure. And it was just a little bit in the film, but I didn't.
Can we talk about that? That was one of my questions. You're hitting all my questions. It's wonderful. So
good.
Thank you.
That's because we have too much in common.
I know, including Sheila, which I'm ready to take a full-on detour for us to do a Sheila.
Another podcast.
101. I don't know. We should do like a little Sheila, but let's talk about the husband really quick. So my wife is a, Canadian, very proud Canadian. All Canadians are. And when her husband died, it was a big deal in Canada. So it was surprising that you didn't really, and also I know he was very important to her. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So was it something where you were just treading lightly, or was it something that you got into and you didn't feel like you needed to, like it didn't apply?
Yeah.
Tell me
why let me be clear. There was never any indication that she trepidated talking about him or that she had misgivings about him. It wasn't that. I think I was maybe just, I was trying to remember her request. What if I just spoke about myself? And while she did bring up her husband from time to time, I just thought I'm going to let her lead the way with that, because I don't want to impose him into her narrative. And he is absolutely part of her historical narrative, but he really wasn't part of the present day narrative at all. He had been so sick and she had suffered alongside him in the last years of his life. And it's very tender. That could be a whole separate film, very beautiful film. But she had suffered with him. And I don't think anyone, like the rest of us in the world, especially her fans, ever thought she would be the one to be suffering. And the irony is she was suffering, but she always just, frankly, took more medication to suppress the symptoms until it just got to where she could not do that anymore. And so I don't think, it's a fact. She was sick when her husband was sick. But his illness was much more forward facing. It was more obvious. It was deadly. Hers was innocuous and mysterious and worrisome and tiring. She just was so tired when I met her. She was so tired of lying. And that is what she told me. And that's a very hard thing to come out and say, I made a film about this really sincere and authentic woman actually who was lying. Like those two words don't go together, authentic and lying, but yet that's what was happening.
But there's so many demands of being Celine Dion and so much money riding on everything. Tell us about sort of the situation she was in when you met her. She had to cancel.
Yeah. So, like so many artists, she was, I believe, in Boston. She had just finished a show and they just said, no more shows. The rest of the tour is canceled. Boston's going into a lockdown tomorrow. New York's already in this situation. So there was no question. I don't think any of the promoters questioned that, but she had a residency in Vegas that was being planned and the stage was being built. And she had 2 solid years of world tours on the books, signed, expected. And the pandemic ended. A lot of musicians got back into the performing world and Celine did not. And there was this very specific period of time where we were making the film and I knew what was going on, but I knew there was a lot of pressure and not to put the emphasis on the investments that everyone had put in, but just I think there wasn't total clarity from all sides what was going on, and she didn't have a diagnosis. So I didn't really press that. I just really focused on what was happening in front of us day to day. And she did cancel her residency, and she did cancel 3 tours, while I was with her.
Reminds me of that warehouse of incredible clothing.
Yeah.
Shoes to the
And
sky.
she didn't want to cancel. I mean, to be clear, she did not want to cancel. She I think the road, sure, it's tiring, but I think she really, this is her comfort zone for her.
Is her family there for her beyond the kids? Because she comes from a huge family, right?
Yeah.
Were they involved at all while you were there? Did they come out and support?
Just one of her sisters, who is the godmother of her boys. And the house was very, very quiet.
Mm-hmm.
There was not a lot of coming and going. And so I knew that I wasn't reaching out to her family. I wasn't even going to make that effort. I spoke with her sister, not on camera, but just I would speak with her because she was at the house every day helping take care of the boys. But I was so comfortable and delighted that just Celine would be the main person and that her boys could be her co-stars. I mean, that just was great.
And they're okay. Like it's their father that passed, right? And
yes. She has 3 sons, and they are all. Renee Angelio was their dad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the performance clips that you chose. I mean, there's so many. God, it's an embarrassment of riches.
600 hours.
Really?
600 hours of personal family archive from when she was about 3 or 4. Through the birth of all 3 of her kids, their childhood, meeting her husband. I mean, it was amazing. There was just so much me and my editor, my editors could not include. I had 2 editors. One was French Canadian, thank goodness, because he just had all sorts of instincts that, I speak French, but I'm not French Canadian. And that's a whole different breed if you are making a film about Celine. And so his name is Richard Cameau, and he was primarily a narrative director, and he's worked with some of the greatest greats, directors in the fiction space. And he really wanted to make this film with me. And so I just went for it, because even though we had no documentary experience really that was in the style of docs that I make, a verite style, I knew he would have the editorial instincts. And then also with Christian Jensen, who you mentioned my trees film at the start of tonight. He edited my film about trees, and more to the point, people obsessed with trees. And so the 2 of them were a really odd pairing, but they both really approached it very artfully, and they were both committed to our common goal, which is that we wanted to surprise you.
You break it up like you're going to work on this part of the film, you're going to work on this part of the film, or do you hire an editor and then you work with the next editor?
Yeah, no, it was very elegant the way it worked. They both worked on it full time separately. So Richard took me up through the cut I showed Celine, and then Christian took me from that point to the end. Even though she did not ask me to change anything, I still wanted to iterate a little further. And so Christian really put these finishing touches on it and brought a lot of authorship to it, in spite of the fact that the film changed hardly at all from the rough cut to the fine.
And you are also credited as additional editing. So are you on the Avid yourself?
Yes. Yeah.
Doing the whole montage?
And editors work with me anyway.
I can woo the occasional editor to work with me too on editing.
Yeah. I mean, it actually helps. Sometimes I pre-edit. I just edit a scene and just pull all the moments that I know really need to be in there. And then it helps me speak with more confidence and assuredness when I talk to the editor about the scene.
Also, it really helps because you're actually pulling selects together that it really helps the editor, also to like rearrange something and say, here's what I'm thinking. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's great to just show somebody.
And one thing I did not do at all, we had transcripts galore, which took my team like so much time to make because, she had an accent. So we had to do it with, human beings. We couldn't do like an AI transcript, so it was very time consuming. And we had these like beautiful copy edited transcripts. And I never used them to edit. I just would watch the footage and be like, that feels right. And then I would just pull that little moment and put it in. So it was very instinctive in that way. And it wasn't too thought out what to pull out. And, that's never really worked for me where I write a paper script. Certainly not unless I'd rather just put it on a timeline and know that that moment works, or know that the way she said that word, the accent and the emphasis is on the right moment in the sentence, to like hit that moment. Right. So,
there's too many things to talk about.
Yeah.
And I want to give the audience a chance to talk, but before I do, one word about Sheila. What did Sheila teach you more than anything else? What's the number one thing you learned from Sheila, the great Sheila Nevins?
When it doesn't work, just throw the whole film up in the air and see how the cards fall. Like nothing was sacred to her. Like, I don't care if it's your rough cut. I don't care if it's your third rough cut. It's not working. It never was that bad. It was more like about a moment or a scene. Right. If I had a whole film that wasn't working by the third rough cut, I probably wouldn't have been working with her. But the point is, like, she would just say, just don't be afraid to just, not kill your babies, slaughter the sacred calf, whatever your metaphor is, but like, just get over it. And the truth is, it's like childbirth. Like you look ahead and you're like, this is so important. And then you just see your child and you're like, oh, this is all that matters. And you forget all those things. I have totally forgotten my rough cuts. I've saved them over the years. All these films, like I've saved them. I have never once gone back to look at them ever. They are so behind me.
It's because you're busy making films about Celine Dion. Maybe one day.
Maybe one day. And then I'll just, I don't know. That's nostalgic. And I don't know that that's.
And then what did you learn the most from this process? You've made a lot of different films. What's most special to you that really has, you said it hasn't changed your life, but obviously everything changes our lives. You wouldn't be sitting here right now.
Yeah, I think I owe a lot to Celine. I have to say, I got lucky with her because she really is who she is. And I didn't really know who she was. And I came by her honestly. I really did. I came by her honestly. I came to know who she is. And I think that whether folks like her music or not, or thought she was for real or not, she is consistent. And she never wavered. She never pulled back on her access. She did say to me early on, she actually said to me before we even started filming, don't ask me permission. Don't ask me. Because if you do, she actually said this phrase. It's like she's a filmmaker. She said, it will break the spell. And I was like, wow, you're absolutely right. It will, because it will break the spell for me too, because I'll be so, concerned that I'm asking you something. So she just said, I will stop you if you can't. So we followed her into the bathroom. We followed her into her bedroom. We followed her into the closet. We didn't stop filming when she was having a medical episode. We just kept going, and she never went back on her word about that. So, I guess, sure, I can think of all the things that may or may not have prepared me to come to this moment for this film. But I have to give a lot to my subject here. She really was the real deal.
And you learn never, ever to ask permission. So that's good. So who would like to ask Irene something before we all have to part ways tonight?
How many gold stars am I getting my editorial team? Do you mean my two editors or like my executive team? Well, the editing was really Christian, Richard, and myself. Like I said, we didn't really rely on the transcript. So it was very like from the gut, and it was edited kind of like, I would say, in like a real verite capacity. But I will say on a broader, like the broader circle, I mean, there were a lot of there were potentially a lot of cooks in the kitchen, and really it just ended up being a big kitchen, but not very many cooks because people were feeling good about what they saw. And that included Celine. So I really had a great team. But those of us who were making the film day to day, there were just 4 of us. It was me, my director of photography, and, my producer, my French producer, and also our associate producer, who ended up, because we were shooting with prime lenses, she was effectively the camera assistant. I mean, most DPs would have demanded an assistant, and he just said, it's fine. Oh yeah. 1 photographer, whole thing. Absolutely. Yeah. We were very, very small. And then my French producer, who I said was there with us, she was the one who went through every second of the archive. So very important part.
And how many days? I didn't ask that. How many days total
that we shot?
Were you there? Yeah. What did you think?
That would almost be a budgetary question. And I don't know the answer to that.
Over months, over a year?
Oh yeah. It was almost a year. It was about a year.
Okay.
Yeah. Sure. The release, Amazon had very thoughtful approach to this, which was very new for me, which was they chose not to submit the film to any festivals to be considered. They decided that they wanted to just put on their own event, and they would hold their breath that Celine would be well enough to come. They did say, will you come? And I said, yes, I will come. And they said, well, if at least one of you is there, that's good. And of course, we were all very happy that Celine could be there because that was really a barometer of her health at that time. So we had a premiere event at Alice Tully Hall in New York. And this was, again, part of Amazon's very thoughtful planning. And so after it premiered there were about 12 or 1,300 people in the audience that were invited. And then they had a lottery for the public who could get tickets. And then it played theatrically for a week. And I forgot to say, the day that we had the New York premiere at Lincoln Center, it played in 10 cities, I think, in North America, and 6 or 8 different cities around the world, in London and Paris and various places. And so it was kind of like a simulcast or nearly simulcast premiere. And so then we had a week-long run in private screenings and public theatrical screenings. And then a week after that premiere at Lincoln Center, Amazon put it on the platform. And the film has been just really doing very well. They've been getting a lot of traction. And I think that's been very validating for Celine, which feels right. I definitely can't speak to their intentions or what they had hoped, but I do know that they looked at my past films, which is why I was a bit perplexed why they wanted me, because I thought, well, I don't know what to do with a non-story. It's just like a biographical sketch, but hey, I really don't like doing the same thing twice. So I was up for it. And I liked the people in her orbit. And more importantly, I saw that the people in her super close orbit had been with her for 25, 35, 38 years. I mean, it was phenomenal. These people had known her since she was 18, working with her. And I just thought, there is something right going on here, And so I wasn't really sure. I was hoping it wouldn't be a traditional music doc, but the truth is, I love music. Music is a huge part of my inspiration. It's in my veins. But I grew up with deaf parents, so I did not grow up listening to classical or listening to the Grateful Dead or listening to Bob Dylan and folk music. I didn't grow up with any music other than what was around me or going to church. So I am very open to all music. And so I was very open to, okay, I'll go on tour, I guess. Sure. Yeah. I don't think the music we like defines us, but I think what we're willing to listen to defines us. And if we're not willing to listen to something, that's definitive. And there is nothing I'm not willing to listen to because I don't have any biases that come from this early place, So yeah, I really can't say there was ideas. And absolutely, this is what I was saying. I didn't know how to direct a crew of photographers, how to shoot with cranes and bring cameras down from the top of the theater. And I didn't know how to do that stuff. And I was just like, oh gosh. And so I panicked for a couple of weeks. But then when they told me that she was sick, then I was not happy to hear the news, but I felt suddenly like I had the tools for that, and I could go to this instinctive place. And to her management's credit, to Sony Music's credit, no one tried to tell me what they thought the film would be. And I did not ask because I didn't want to know the answer. I really didn't. So I just didn't bring it up.
And the other thing that you said to me that I'll wrap us up with, because they're saying that we have to leave, is that you really felt like you could make this film because you weren't a fan going in, and that you wouldn't be able to necessarily, if you were, be as well equipped to make a film if you were not a fan. If you were a fan, now you've left making this film a fan of this human being.
Yeah, of this human being, for sure.
Yeah.
But you told me, but maybe we're at this place where we've been doing this long enough that actually we could say with confidence, I can make a film about someone I'm totally in love with or I'm totally enamored of. And we realized it's because we cut our teeth photographing, telling stories about our own families. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really like about restraint. If you love your subject too much, you don't have restraint. You just want to protect their legacy at all costs, or you just want to like share what's so great about them. But I think,
or you assume that everyone knows them or feels the same way.
Well, sure. Yeah, of course. Yeah. But I think by the end of your film, for example, about your dad, like you get to this point where the director or the person who made this film is love. It is love. And even though I did not go into this film loving Celine Dion, the public figure, I came out of it with just a tremendous respect for her as a human being, as a performer, and as an artist. As an artist, we all do. For sure.
We all do, right? Yeah. Consensus, applause. Perfect. Thank you so much for coming, Irene.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening to another DGA Q&A. The Director's Cut is available wherever you listen to podcasts. And please share, subscribe, rate, and review. We'd love to hear your feedback, and you can help fellow film buffs find the show. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America.